related to your children. We are talking about the National Schools Nutrition Policy. And the ideas being put forward this evening have been generated from both the Ministry of Education and Youth and the Ministry of Health and Wellness. And so there's much to discuss, and we encourage your support, your full participation, because when we have your participation and your ideas, we're better able to get your support for what we believe is in the best interest of your children. With me this evening are some noted persons who I must introduce, and I'm going to begin by introducing the Minister of Education and Youth, the Honorable Fable Williams, who is with us. And those of you who were with us when we had the consultation last week on the National Grooming Policy for Schools, she was here. And of course, we look forward to Minister's thoughts regarding the policy. With her is also another important figure, and he is the Honorable Christopher Tufton. He is the Minister of Health, the Ministry of Health and Wellness. And we also have on the platform Dr. Tamar Stevenson, who is a Senior Education Officer, Policy and Analysis, Research and Statistics here at the Ministry of Education and Youth. We also have Dr. Dion Keynes, Technical Officer, National Food Industry Task Force of the Ministry of Health and Wellness. There's also Mr. Robert Donaldson, and he is a Physical Activity Specialist of the Southeastern Regional Health Authority of the Ministry of Health and Wellness. There is Mr. Stephen Jacobs, and he is the newly minted president of the National Parent Teachers Association of Jamaica. We have an important lady with us also. She's the director of the School Feeding Unit of the Ministry of Education and Youth, and she's Mrs. Dillette Hope Webb. I am Casey Akar, and I'm the Chief Executive Officer of the National Parenting Support Commission, and I'll be guiding you through this evening's process. With me is also Mr. Giovanni Brady from the Ministry of Health and Wellness, and he is also going to be helping to moderate as we take your concerns, your contributions, those of you in the virtual space on the different platforms, whether you're on Facebook or YouTube, or however you're connecting this evening, we want to hear from you. I thank you so much. This is an important policy, and one might ask, what has the National Parenting Support Commission got to do with this process? And even the Ministry of Health, the Ministry of Education, I beg your pardon, and Youth, aren't we talking about nutrition? Well, as we go further in the program, you'll understand. Just a little background. The National Parenting Support Commission is an agency of the Ministry of Education and Youth and has been concerned for a long time with the nutrition of our children, because we know that nutrition contributes to how a child acquires knowledge. And so interestingly, it was one of the considerations when the National Parenting Support Commission was set up. And so as an agency of the Ministry of Education and the wider Ministry of Education, we certainly understand that nutrition is important. And of course, the Ministry of Health, just by virtue of who they are, would clearly be concerned about nutrition, because nutrition is aligned to our health. So we're going to get right into it, and we're going to begin with a word of prayer. As is customary in our country, we want to invite the presence of the Lord to ensure that we use wisdom. It will guide our thinking, it will guide our contributions, and that whatever we do this evening will be ultimately to his glory. So may I now invite Mrs. Dillette Hope Webb to offer a word of prayer. Oh, please unmute Mrs. Hope Webb. think you're muted.
Sorry about that. Good evening. Father, we just want to thank you for today. We thank you for your goodness, your mercies, and your love. We thank you, Lord God, for our leaders. We thank you for our parents. We thank you for our children. You said in your word, suffer the little children to come unto me, and forbid them not, for of such is the kingdom of God. As we come this evening, O God, to consult with our parents regarding the National School Nutrition Policy, now a green paper, we invite your presence among us, Father. I pray, God, for unity. For united we stand, but divided we fall. So tonight as we come, we pray for togetherness, Lord, because together we can run this race. I pray that you continue to bless and keep our parents, our children, this nation, our leaders, oh God. We just want to put in your hands the rest of this consultation session. And we pray that your perfect will be done. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen, amen, and amen. Praise be to God.
And of course, we all agree. We say amen. Thank you so much, Mrs. Hope Webb. We move quickly. May I now invite greetings from Mr. Stuart Jacobs, who is the National Parent Teachers Association of Jamaica president. Mr. Jacobs, may I invite you now to give greetings.
Thank you, Ms. Carr. Ms. Keisha Carr, CEO, National Parenting Commission, and moderator for these evenings. Let's talk a conversation with parents primarily on a nutrition policy. Honorable Favour Williams, Minister of Education and Youth, an open supporter to the NPTJ. Once again, we meet to discuss and find possible solutions for our children of our nation while in school. Madam, the NPTJ once again commends you and your team on this initiative. Dr. the Honorable Christopher Tufton, Minister of Health and Wellness. So this is moving in the right direction for Jamaica's children, pun intended. Other distinguished guests, members of the NPTJ Executive Region Chairs, special greeting to Dr. Stephen Carr. Your vision on these matters is indeed appreciated, sir. Thanks for the invitation, and more so inviting me once again bring greetings on behalf of the National Parent Teachers Association of Jamaica. Members of the panel, presenters, parents, guardians of Jamaica's children, PTA all across Jamaica, teachers, school administrators, well-wishers, good evening. I bring greetings from the NPTJ to you all on this occasion where we will discuss a now green paper, meaning government consultation on this issue. To decree, put into effect a national school nutrition policy. Why is this necessary, one might ask? The NPTJ's stance on these affairs is that they are relevant, they're timely, and most value added to the cause of better educating our children. We are what we eat. Before I go further, the first rule of any effective government is to protect its people, even from themselves. According to the WHO, a healthy diet helps to protect against malnutrition in all its forms, as well as non-communicable diseases. Including heart disease, stroke, and cancer. Our children are not exempted. Our children, that next generation to take on this legacy of Jamaica's education, must learn that there is a distinct correlation between good health and happiness. Attending school is an experience that should be enjoyed. We, the parents of Jamaica, are committed to supporting this life-saving policy. The NPTAJ will take from this document even further by forging ahead to have incorporated in the Education Act. All PTAs will be asked to support their school's nutrition policy. Parents, I urge you to listen and be guided by the good sense. Not all good taste is best. Let me take this opportunity to commend the Minister of Education and Youth and its Minister, the Honorable Favour Williams, to be bold and strident at ensuring there is an avenue for parents' voice to be heard. Madam Minister, you have the support of the NPTAJ, and as a newly elected chairman of this august body, we stand ready to carry out the asking of your partner in this message of a national nutrition policy. Minister Tufton, your robust attempt at ensuring that Minister Tufton, your robust attempt at ensuring Jamaicans are exposed to best practice nutrition intake has not gone unnoticed. I ask of you, Madam Minister, after all is settled with this matter, that there be considered a deliberate move by the government to subsidize even further the must-have meals in schools. There are times parents on the economic fringe of our society can only afford the less expensive, low nutrition meals. Encourage schools to create a holistic menu catered to by the school system to eliminate intrusion by those aimed at making a buck at any cost. This will ensure better controls of what our children intake is, well, at least while in school. Let's continue to protect our children, their way of thinking, actions, and views of why we do things the way it's done despite not accepting. Let them live a life to be better, healthier at life. I thank you for your time and do hope the proceedings will be value added to all here present. Good evening.
Thank you so much, President Jacobs, for greeting us so well. We move on very quickly to now invite the Honorable Favour Williams, the Minister of Education and Youth, to give us the policy overview to look at development and implementation. Minister Williams.
Sure, thank you so much. Good night, everyone. Let me begin by acknowledging moderator, Ms. Casey Akar, the Honorable Minister Tufton, Minister of Health and the Ministry of Health and Wellness, or P.S. Dwyer, acting, or Chief Education Officer, Dr. Troop, acting, President of the NPTAJ, Mr. Stuart Jacobs. Thank you so much, Mr. Jacobs, for what you have articulated. Your organization is definitely a very important stakeholder in this, in this sector called education, and we welcome you to the presidency and look forward to working with you. Let me acknowledge all the parents who are on tonight. Thank you for taking time out to be on this very important platform tonight. All our principals who might be here, or teachers or students, team members from the Ministry of Education and Youth, as well as from the Ministry of Health and Wellness, all our presenters, members of the media, good night again. This policy that's going to be talked about here tonight, it's called the Proposed National School Nutrition Policy. And we have been doing a number of consultation sessions across the sector, across the education sector, with the manufacturers of food products. We've spoken with principals. We're speaking with you, our parents, tonight. As you know, the Ministry of Education and Youth, with support from the Ministry of Health and Wellness, have the mandate to ensure that proper nutrition is established within schools through the vehicle of the National School Nutrition Policy. There's a lot of research out there on obesity and overweight rates in children, and Jamaica is no exception. It is also widely accepted, and I believe was said earlier on, that good nutrition practices in school can improve cognitive and academic performance depending on the type of food provided, the size of the food rations, and the program duration. It is also acknowledged that in order to improve children's nutritional status, regular meals that significantly address nutritional deficiencies in children's diet, which can lead to future risks for premature death and disability in adulthood, must be managed. I know when Dr. Tufton gets on, he will speak to the health side of it. We want to ensure that in our schools, we are encouraging proper nutrition. We're encouraging our children to pause during lunchtime and ensure that they are sitting properly, enjoying their meals. They're not rushing, walking, gulping down the sugary stuff that's there. We want to ensure that all our vendors are aware of the guidelines as well, the tuck shops in our schools, our principals, teachers, all persons that operate in that space. We want to increase their awareness of this policy, but also to talk about just the benefits of educating our children on proper nutrition, because they are the ones growing up to become the adults. And to the extent we can increase their knowledge base about good choices, healthy choices, you can see as they grow into adults that they will be making those choices not only for themselves, but they will be teaching it to the generation that's behind them. So the National School Nutrition Policy is part of a national response to improving the nutritional status of children in Jamaica, and to highlight the significant policy and programmatic steps the government of Jamaica has taken to address the threats faced by Jamaicans resulting from unhealthy diet and physical inactivity. And I know that there's a presentation a little later on, and they will cover all the parts of the policy, and I hope we will leave enough time for question and answer. We want to hear from you, our parents, whatever is on your mind as it relates to nutrition in schools. We want to hear from you on that as well. So with that, Ms. Carr, moderator, I'm going to hand it back over to you, because I believe the presentation to come is the important presentation from the Ministry of Education and Youth. And I'm sure Dr. Tufton and his team will also be weighing in. Thank you very much.
Thank you so very much, Minister, for those insights. And because we really want to get to the discussions and hear from you, we're moving along with swiftness. May I now welcome the Honorable Christopher Tufton, Minister of Health and Wellness.
Hi, good evening. I have to apologize. I'm gonna just show my face briefly and then go back to showing the taking it off, because the reception is bad and not hearing. It's cutting in and out. So I'm just trying to give a little more bandwidth if it goes out. But I want to just take the opportunity to say thanks to the Ministry of Education in combination with the Ministry of Health, putting this together, my colleague, Minister Favor Williams, and all the support team, including the National Parent Teachers Association of Jamaica and others. Really want to welcome the parents, in particular online, because it is about them knowing and understanding what we're trying to do and giving the support to this. I think my colleague, Minister, has said it all. This is a school nutrition policy green paper, which means it's a discussion paper to be finalized, hopefully in a white paper and then to policy. And it was approved by Cabinet after much consultation and discussion. And really is about nutrition for the children. I mean, let's face it, habits are developed at an early age and stage in life. The school is a captive space, and we spend our time, our teachers, supported by parents, giving them, the kids, as best as possible, the guidance that is necessary to develop wholesome habits. Big part of that wholesomeness is nutrition. And all the evidence suggests that our children, in terms of their health status, is deteriorating. Obesity and overweight, the Health and Lifestyle Survey of 2017 looks at, and the Global School Health Survey looks at children from 13 to 15, and the data shows some very alarming statistics, which I won't go into. So the policy is intended to bring all hands on deck to correct a trend that is negative and that impacts our children's learning abilities and discourages premature illness. And so we have had discussions with a number of stakeholders, manufacturers, school administrators, and others. And on the standards front, it really is about replacing some of the foods with healthy alternatives, providing adequate amount of nutrients while reducing salt, sugars, saturated and trans fats, and addressing issues around marketing of unhealthy foods within our school environment, including things like sugary drink. As you know, that policy was already implemented, and it's around trying to manage and get that policy implemented. At the end of it all, it has specific recommendations around meals that are planned, 30% of recommended daily allowance for energy, for example, 50% for vitamin C, iron. So it places a certain specifications around what should be served in the schools. Someone mentioned earlier the issue of cost. Well, you know, the school environment will obviously, as part of the mission, working with Ministry of Health and the nutritionists, seek to find ways to ensure that we provide healthy at a cost that is affordable. There's a school feeding program, which I know the minister could comment on, that clearly will also attempt to do the same thing. And, you know, in some instances, it is more affordable. For example, drinking water as opposed to sugary drink. Water is by far the most healthy. So it's really about developing habits to do that. And I could go on and on, you know, complex carbs as opposed to eating the more processed foods. These are all things that will come into the mix in order to support the policy. Sweetened versus unsweetened, things like milk and so on. And then the marketing of unhealthy foods, creating a sterile environment for our children not to be influenced by some of these efforts that in turn will create demand and by extension create habits. So I want to thank all who have played a role in making this possible. This is a joint government approach, and I know that we have online a presentation to be made from Health by Ms. Dion Keynes, our technical officer, who will give more specifics. But I just want to endorse support, as my colleague minister has done, what is a very important initiative in order to stem the unhealthy diet and the premature illness and the lack of attentiveness because of high sugar content and so on. So, you know, improve the learning experience and environment for our children, which is the obligation of all of us. Thank you very much. And I hand back to you, Madam Moderator.
Thank you so much, Dr. Tufton, Minister of Health and Wellness. Just a side note, Dr. Tufton, I had the privilege of listening to you last Friday at the leadership conference. So your thoughts have been consistent. And I know that this nutrition policy, once it's passed, will go a far way in remedying some of the concerns that you continue to highlight, not only for parents, but certainly for the children who have to model the behaviors that they see parents display. So thank you so much, Dr. Tufton. We're moving on nicely, and now I want to invite Mr. Robert Donaldson, and he is the Physical Activity Specialist, Southeast Regional Health Authority, Ministry of Health and Wellness. Please help me now welcome Mr. Robert Donaldson. Mr. Donaldson.
Good night, everyone. Good night. All right, so my name is Robert Donaldson. Just setting up so y'all can see me. All right. I'm the Regional Physical Activity Specialist at Southeast Region Sierra. Now, physical activity is very important as well as the nutritional aspect, right? Now, I'm going to take you out to a 5 to 10 minutes physical activity session. I'll be showing you and demonstrating activities that can be done at home with the kids and also activities that can be done at school as well. So we're going to start by doing a light workout, right? Cardio. We're going to start out by doing some jumping jacks. So I'm going to play some music and I'd like everyone to be engaged in this activity.
Are you ready for this?
All right.
You better fit. They do them brand new that you want it energetic. Are you ready for this? You better fit. Our players who at them can't keep up with it. Everybody warm up, everybody warm up, everybody warm up, everybody warm up. Every man warm up, every man warm up, everybody warm up, everybody warm up. We do the warm up, we do the warm up, we do the warm up, bring that warm up, brave and warm up, now yellow warm up. Everybody shall get it down, logo. Let me see everybody down the dance, logo. Bring up your time, bring it, logo. Everybody now move up your weight with the logo. You know how to be at the place with the logo. Tell me when you're up the place with the logo. For you want
What kicks? All right.
Everybody warm up, everybody warm up, everybody warm up, the girl warm up, the man warm up, everybody warm up, everybody warm up, we just warm up, we just warm up, we just warm up, things that warm up, warm up, everybody warm up.
We're going into some high knees now. Right, active burst, bounce on the spot, bounce on the spot.
Dance we are not keeping it jiggy. Walk to something. Dance we are not keeping it jiggy.
Again, some jumping jacks.
Keeping it jiggy. Popularity dance we ever with jiggy. Dance we are not keeping it jiggy. Put the sign of the popularity. Dance them and not keeping it jiggy. That can't be that we can mention jiggy. Dance them and not keeping it jiggy. But them are not giving it. Dance them and not keeping it jiggy. Give them a flag tackle like we pour up jiggy. Dance we are not keeping it jiggy. Pick up jump. AJ and freedom and keep it chicken. That easy everybody the money man did it. And it's in a town.
Active burst. All right. Now remember the recommendation for physical activity for adults 30 minutes a day, 5 days a week, and for children 1 hour or 60 minutes of physical activity. All right. So let's go again. Touching the stomach, right hands. 1, 2, 3, go. Forward. All right, back up. All right, active breaths. Because we're not fit, so we'll do active breaths, bounce on the spot, keep it going.
Let's go.
All right, get the knees up. Get the knees up. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, we're going to screw in the ball. We're going to screw in the ball. All right, we're screw in the ball. So it's 1, 2, okay. Creative. On the spot. Bones on the spot. Bones on the spot. Let's go. Let's go. That's it. That's it. All right. We can get some skip in it. Yeah, listen. Yeah, see you. Let's go. Anti-press. With the bounce out, with the bounce in. All right, feet apart, going right. Alright, so what the bounce, same bounce, same direction, but we use our neck now. Use our neck. Just take it good. 1, go.
On to the mic.
Alright, rest. Active rest, let's bounce.
Going
back and forth. It's nice to go swag back and forth. So get our rest in, very important. Again. So what activities? So starting back again. All right. And as time is getting away, so we're going to go into our cool down. All right, everybody, realize time is going. So we're going to cool down. Very important aspect of physical activity. That's the prevention of injuries, all right, and also bring your heart to normal heart rate. So let's go. All right, so deep breath session. All right, hands down. All right, so hands down. Start from toe position. Twinkle fingers, everybody, twinkle fingers. Deep breath. All right, inhale. Let it out, exhale. One more, big one. Exhale through your mouth. Ready? One more. And down. All right. Stretching hands up on your toes, Right up. Awesome. All right. Right hand across the chest. Stretching right hand across the chest. Use the left hand Pull at the elbow, so elbow meets elbow. Nice stretch. You should feel the tension in the shoulders, right? And normally keep a stretches for 10 to 15 seconds. So we're going to go 10 seconds, all right? And change. Left hand across the chest, right hand pulling. Elbow meets elbow. Nice stretch and pull. Well done, John K. Brown. Nice, perfect. Great. All right. Now we're touching the toes. Touching the toes. All right. So what I want you to do for me now is to take your right hand, right? We're going to hold our left or right leg behind, all right? So just gently pull, gently pull. In order to maintain a balance, you can always focus on a spot, right? Nestali, just focus on a spot. Just look on the ground, focus on a spot. That will help you to maintain a balance. Perfect. Next leg. Awesome. Good job. All right. All right. Now, another important thing is for you to hydrate. All right. So drink some water. Everybody get some water and hydrate. Thank you guys very much. Awesome.
And thank you, Mr. Donaldson, and for all those persons who are participating online. Thank you so much. Nutrition and physical activity, they go hand in hand. In fact, the Ministry of Health and Wellness partners with the National Parenting Support Commission to deliver that very module, nutrition and physical activity, to parents right across Jamaica. The last cohort of parents who benefited from that module were from St. Mary and Portland. So it's very important that we understand that nutrition and physical activity go hand in hand. And I know many of us, including me, learned a lot this evening and will be able to continue as we try to get more active, because that's important to our wellness. Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Donaldson. And we're moving on now. I want to invite Dr. Tamar Stevenson, Senior Education Officer, Policy Analysis, Research and Statistics Unit, right here at the Ministry of Education and Youth. Go ahead now, Mr. Stevenson.
Okay, so thank you everyone. The protocols have already been established. I will move straight into doing just a brief presentation on the National School Nutrition Policy. So let me minimize this so that you can see. Okay, great. The mission really is promoting quality and cost-effective nutritional and wellness services to all children in our educational facilities to improve learning and well-being. And as you know, there's a direct relationship between what you consume as well as what you will have to demonstrate through your learning. But what's the situation though? The situation is that a number of research have shown that between 25 and 33% of school-age population children arrive at school hungry. Obesity, overweight and obesity are twice as common as underweight and increases rapidly with age during the school year. And iron deficiency anemia. Iron deficiency anemia is a serious nutritional problem among school-age children because when students have this particular issue, what they realize is that they will feel weak, they will feel tired, and they cannot focus. Now, the purpose and the scope of the NSNP is really to reduce cases of obesity among children by 2030. And if you notice, the key milestone in terms of a date there is 2030, because Jamaica's National Development Plan Vision 2030 And separate and apart from that, you also have the sustainable development goals as well. We also want to increase physical activity among the children, while at the same time promoting healthy eating habits. So those are really the purpose and the scope of this proposed nutritional policy. But separating apart from that, though, there are some key guiding principles that govern the actual development of this document. And the first one is equity and equality. So irrespective of your religion, irrespective of where you live, irrespective of the school you attend, you will not be discriminated. And that's one of the critical principles governing this policy. The second one is a multi-sectoral and community engagement. The mere fact that we are here with you this evening, parents, is a testament to this approach, because we do believe in collaboration, we do believe in teamwork, cooperation in terms of getting the job done. But separating apart from that, you have right to good nutrition and the rights of the child. There are critical documents that govern the actual development of this document. And finally, one of the critical guiding principles is good governance. Good governance, one wherein that there is transparency, there is accountability. And you being here this evening, parents, is a classical example of the level of transparency and accountability that we want to continue to promote. The policy in and of itself has 5 core areas. It has 5 core areas, and one of the first one is the school environment and education in schools. And there are a number of areas, but 2 of the critical ones, and I want you to pay close attention to the first one. Unhealthy food and drink will be prohibited within schools, within a 200-meter zone. So what we are seeking to do is to ensure that we have a zone in place, while at the same time we are also going to be encouraging more locally grown food in the preparation of our meals. The second one is really you're going to be providing the meals to meet the nutritional standards. And so we are going to be having recipe manuals with local produce in the schools, as well as marketing of unhealthy foods in schools will be controlled. So in a sense, we're hoping to have flyers with the menus, with the nutritional content, etc. All of those will help as part of the learning process too. So we want to ensure that we have those documents in place. And then, of course, the physical activity environment. This is really the third broad focus, and it is really to encourage students up to grade 13 will get 3 5-minute physical activity break during the days, as well as 1 hour of physical activity weekly. And so this is something that we are going to ensure that we promote. The next principle is promoting and supporting a healthy lifestyle. Students will get regular health checks and counseling, and they will also be provided with adequate, clean, safe drinking water. And what I really have to say and what I have noticed is that students nowadays, they are taking their water to school and they really like that. But separate and apart from that, the schools will provide adequate, clean and safe drinking water. And one of the critical and the 5th component is curriculum development, where the teachers will be trained in the new curriculum and lifestyle. So this is where we are going to be building on the health and family life education. We are going to be ensuring that there is ongoing integration. So the recipe as an example, the poster with the food label, with the nutritional content, all of those are going to form part of the lesson. So it's an ongoing learning process, while at the same time, we will continue to expose the teachers the best practices, because at the end of the day, we have to continue to take this type of collaborative approach in terms of getting the type of buy-in, in terms of getting the type of support that we will need. And that wraps up my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Stevenson. Thank you for sharing those thoughts and for giving some background to the parents so they can have a better appreciation of why this policy is important. Now we move to Ms. Dion Keynes, Technical Officer, National Food Industry Task Force, Ministry of Health and Wellness.
Good evening, everyone. And I crave your indulgence for just a little while I try to share with you what the proposed nutrition standards are and why we have them. So currently there is an NCD epidemic, it's a crisis. So you could look at this picture and you see a tsunami and it's washing over a city. You could look at this city as us, Jamaica, even globally. And the tsunami is NCDs like cancer, hypertension or high blood pressure, heart disease, diabetes that we call sugar. About 20,000 Jamaicans will become overweight or obese this year. And overweight and obesity put you at increased risk of developing one of these NCDs or more than one. So nearly 80% of Jamaicans die from NCDs. There was a study done that looked at the cost of NCDs, and it didn't even look at all of them. And they found that in 15 years, between 2017 to 2032, our economy would lose $77 billion because of NCDs. Almost 30 billion was due to direct medical costs like surgeries, medication, and so on. And about 47 billion was losses from reduced labor and productivity. So when people are sick, they can't go to work, they're absent from work or they're at work and sick. And so these losses are significant. We also know that unhealthy eating in children particularly leads to unhealthy children. So they will become overweight or obese, or if it is not enough, they may become undernourished. We also know that there can be earlier onset of some of these NCDs, and of course, general ill health. So they may get sick more frequently, and we don't want that. So we know some of the NCDs, the common ones. We know about diabetes, heart disease, cancer, high blood pressure, but is it really a problem? I mean, we talk about it, but is it a problem? So I want you to imagine for a minute that each of these 30 circles represents a person. So there are 30 people. So it might be a small group at church or in the supermarket. Just think of you around 30 persons. How many of these persons do you think would have high blood pressure? So we did a survey in 2017. It's called the Jamaica Health and Lifestyle Survey. And they surveyed Jamaicans aged 15 years old to 75 years old. And of those persons surveyed, about 31.5% had hypertension. So that means in this small group of 30, that's 9 people. Think about that. So you say, well, I mean, enough people have high blood pressure, what difference does it make? Well, there are some complications that can occur because of high blood pressure. You could lose your eyesight. You could develop kidney disease. There's sexual dysfunction, heart failure, stroke. These are the things we want to prevent. So we're looking at prevention. We don't want our children to be subject to these things at any point in their life. So we want to reduce their risk. What about diabetes? The same 30 persons, just think about 30 people, it's not a big group. According to that survey, 10.2% of our population, 15 to 75 years, has diabetes. That's 3 of them in the 30. And some complications from type 2 diabetes, eyesight, loss of nerve sensation, you can't feel anymore. You could have tooth and gum problems. You get a cut and it doesn't heal well. You can develop high blood pressure. You can get a heart attack. You started out with diabetes, you end up with a heart attack. So these are the things we want to prevent. What about high cholesterol? The survey showed that about 17% of the persons had high cholesterol. So out of the 30, that's about 5. And some effects of having high cholesterol, you can get a stroke, you can have memory loss, heart attack, you have gallstones, you can even develop diabetes. And so think about it the next time you're in the supermarket, look at a small group, count out the 30 people, and think to yourself, just remember the NCD profile. If nothing changes, and I mean that means if nothing gets better, you would have this many people who have NCDs, who are battling health diseases. And we don't want our children to fall into these categories. We want them to live long and healthy lives. So what are some of the things that cause people to develop NCDs? Well, there are some things that we can change. We consider those modifiable risk factors, and some things we don't have control over. So we have our 5 most, not common, but significant diseases, and they have some common risk factors. So unhealthy diet, tobacco use, harmful use of alcohol, physical inactivity, and air pollution. And so these risk factors, imagine it like crossing the road. They tell you when you're crossing the street, look left, right, and left again. And that would reduce the likelihood that you're hit by a car. Not saying you'll never get hit by a car, but it greatly reduces your likelihood of getting hit by that car. Think of these risk factors as looking left, right, and left again. So if you avoid these risk factors, it's less likely that you'll get hit by that NCD car. And so that's what we want to do in the schools. We want to make the schools an environment that is safer for the children. So is it important for parents and caregivers to make decisions about children's health? Do you think that the school environment should be controlled to make it a healthier place for students to spend their time? We can discuss in the discussion section. We know we have Jamaica Moves in Schools that looks at physical activity, nutrition, and age-appropriate health checks. So the school nutrition standards would then expand and strengthen the nutrition aspect of the Jamaica Moves in Schools program. So in the standards, we want to basically set out which foods are allowed and not allowed, and to ensure that the students are exposed to more nourishing foods and less of the foods that are not so healthy. So it applies to all the schools that the Ministry of Education has control over up to the secondary level. And we have proposed a 200-meter boundary around the school. And so it would include any activity being held for students within that boundary. It applies to anybody who is providing meals, snacks, or beverages, whether it's a canteen, the tuck shop, the vendor, a student group doing a fundraiser, everyone. And it applies during school days and during school hours and during special school activities. We have proposed some exceptions and exemptions. So one exemption that is proposed is foods brought from home for personal consumption. And we have proposed this to accommodate any special dietary needs. So caregivers may choose to prepare foods for their children or their wards based on their special dietary needs, and so those have been proposed to be exempted from the standards. We also looked at sports drinks. These are specially formulated to enhance performance. They wouldn't abide by our beverage guidelines because of the high sugar content, but when you are training and in intense competition, you will need that. And so we're saying that the sports drinks should not be sold openly, but they'll be used by athletes during training and competition. And things like meal replacement beverages or therapeutic beverages. Once the student has been seen by a qualified medical professional who has conducted a thorough nutrition assessment, then it would be allowed under the guidance of that professional. So a doctor might refer the person to a nutritionist, and then if it's going to be used for a prolonged period, the nutritionist will monitor that student. We've also proposed that cultural foods would be accepted on special days. So for example, you have Jamaica Day and you want to showcase all our favorite things like the drops and the grater cake and so on. Because we want to maintain our culture, we have proposed exceptions to include those cultural foods on special commemorative days. The standards outline what should be served in the cooked meals. So we have currently proposed 2 sizes, a large and a small, And for each age group, it provides 30% of what is recommended for the daily intake of calories, protein, fat, carbohydrates, 50% for vitamin C and 50% for iron, because we know that anemia is a challenge for us in Jamaica. We propose that iron-rich foods are included at least 3 times a week, and plant-based proteins given as an option at least twice a week, and water should be made available at meal times. This is a summary of the standards, just showing the different the amounts that would be included in the small and the large lunch. For example, if we look at the staples, we would see that in the small lunch, it would be 1 cup of rice or pasta, and in the large lunch, it would be about 1.5 cups. And we're proposing that these 2 sizes, these would be the constituents of those sizes. You heard about our recipe manual. We're proposing diversity and variety in that manual. And you'll see, yes, it does include some fried chicken every now and then, but it's not a regular fixture on the menu. You have things like vegetable soup, chicken vegetable soup, red pea soup, or including our legumes. You have mince and mixed vegetables, barbecue chicken. These are cycle menus. We also have a cycle menu for vegetarians because we know everybody doesn't eat meat. And so there are vegetarian meals as well, and a vegetarian cycle menu is included in the recipe manual. This is just to show you an example of some of the meals as prepared from the recipe manual. So on the top left, you have meatless stew peas with white rice and steamed cabbage. In the middle, we have curry goat with rice and gungo peas and steamed carrot and string beans. And then on the top right, you have tofu fried rice with tomato and shredded cabbage salad. So again, variety, and we're looking at a balanced meal. But you see here, processed and ultra-processed pre-packaged foods. That talks about those packaged foods that don't look so much like what they were originally. So they have been changed and changed and changed and changed, gone through a lot of change to become the final product. So a lot of our processed snacks, the packaged snacks, are considered processed and ultra-processed foods. So we propose to assess them using this model. And this model is based on the goals that we know for health. So we know that if you consistently eat foods that are above these thresholds, you are more likely to get hit by that NCD card. So unfortunately, when we use this model, we also know that about 90% of the packaged snacks as we know it would not make it. That's because they are too salty, they have too much salt, they have too much sugar, or they have too much fat, or a combination of all these things, or they contain artificial sweeteners. And we have been speaking to the manufacturers, and we know that globally, this is something that manufacturers are looking at. So if the manufacturers make new products, or they reformulate existing products, or we change our snack habits, then we would have other things available as snack options. Where it pertains to beverages, we're going to retain what is currently in the interim guidelines for beverages in schools. That means that we would not restrict beverages that are unsweetened. So no form of sweetening added to them, those would be allowed. What we won't allow is beverages that are sweetened and have more sugar than we stipulate. We won't allow energy drinks or other beverages with more than 40 milligrams of caffeine. And we propose to not allow beverages containing artificial sweeteners. We're also looking at marketing standards. So what we want is that any brand that is anywhere in the school is not associated with a high fat, high salt, or high sugar food. So whether it is a mascot, or the company comes to do a giveaway, or they want to build a section of the school and put their branding on it, or they sponsor a team, or they sponsor a feeding program, it should not be associated with any brand that is high in fat, salt, or sugar. And those are a summary of what are in the proposed standards. And now I hand over because it is time for you to tell us what you think about this policy.
Thank you so much, Ms. Keynes, for the synopsis and for sharing with parents in ways I believe they can access readily what obtains in the policy as it is being proposed. I want to thank all 392, or just a little less, of you parents out there who have remained on the Zoom platform, and certainly those who continue to listen to the presentations who are in the other virtual spaces. Thank you so much. I know we've had a little bit of a challenge with the technology, so I'm happy that persons have decided to stay on to discuss this important policy that has to do with the health and well-being of your children. Thank you so much. So we want to hear from you now, because your voices clearly matter. We want to know what your thoughts are regarding the policy, especially the important points that were just articulated by Ms. Keynes. So I now open the floor for this kind of discussion and to get your feedback, parents. May I also say that Mr. Giovanni Brady will assist with this process to ensure that we're covering as many people as possible. So I want to go straight to the chat and begin with Shani Bowen, who says very enthusiastically, I support. Oh, no, that's not what she's saying. Okay. Darrett Lewin and Deborah Berry and Hyacinth Williams, they're all in agreement that they love this policy. And Patrice is saying she thinks the policy is okay. And we have some other persons like Abigail who is saying, I love this policy. Tanisha Tomlinson is saying, I love most of what I'm hearing. And so we seem to be getting good support online, but we want to hear other thoughts, other concerns, if any, because this is a space where you get an opportunity to get clarification. If there's anything that you don't understand, or maybe you have a thought or something that needs to be considered that might not have been discussed here, or something that's actually in the policy that you didn't hear. So at least we get to share that with you. So there is a question here. What can be done in school for children to eat vegetables? And Ms. Keynes, do you want to take that one? What can be done in schools for children to eat vegetables?
Listen, I think that's a difficult one. Change takes time, and it's about habits. So we have to start. I know that in some schools that have school gardens, they have seen an increase in the children's intake of vegetables because the students are the ones who grew them. But it's the culture is so varied across Jamaica. I don't think I could give you one strategy. We know we try education, we try exposure at school, but the truth is a lot of children don't get it at home. So they see it at school, and some students, honestly, they don't know what a string bean is because they've never seen it. And when it comes in the lunch, they're not going to eat it. So it's a task. We're going to continue with our education. We're going to continue with, trying different methods of getting to the children, getting their exposure, and also getting to the parents to try to see how best we can increase access to these things so that they can actually have them at home as well as at school. I don't know if anyone else wants to contribute here.
Okay, thank you so much for that that answer, that response. And we do have the concern, most of them referring to children do not want to eat vegetables. Is Minister Williams online? I'm not seeing everybody. Minister, is there any, do you want to weigh?
Yes, I'm still on. I support what was said a while ago in terms of the question that was asked about how you get children to eat vegetables. In particular, the answer that it takes time and it's a matter of behavior change. We're seeing that with water. Children don't necessarily like to drink water, but now it's in school, it's everywhere that they look. They're seeing their friends drink water. They're drinking more water, they're bringing water from home and so on. So it's going to take some behavior change, just a continual reminder, exposure, as was said to it, an explanation of what is this vegetable, in class, that it can be part of the fun activities they have in class. To identify these things, eat raw and so on.
Thank you, Minister. So the National Parenting Support Commission also wants to weigh in on this. I think parents too, there are many parents who will also need to change their own attitudes towards vegetables. It is supposed to look attractive on the plate, and you're going to talk to your children about why it's good for them to have it. It shouldn't feel like punishment. So you shouldn't make the eating of vegetables look as if it's something that's bad, but get enthusiastic about eating vegetables. Let your children see you explore different vegetables, eating different vegetables. Let them see it on the plates consistently and gradually introduce new vegetables and tell them about why it's healthy, what good it's going to do to their bodies when they have vegetables. And over time, their attitudes will change. It takes consistency, and of course, your own attitude towards that will help. So you'd have had
moderator, if you could
Yes,
stress again, that this is not punishment.
Right, it's not punishment.
Do not shout at your child for not eating the vegetable. Do not hit them for not eating the vegetable. You know, this is about encouraging. This is about making your child aware. It's a gentle push here, you know, in terms of your child. This is not for you, as I said, to get awful about this. It's something to introduce, as the word says, into the life of the child.
Absolutely, Minister. Absolutely. Thank you. All right. So we're moving on. Is there any proposal for reducing the portions that must accompany? No, it's not a question. So Troy Blake is saying any proposals for reduced portions must be accompanied by proposals for reduced prices. We cannot steal from our children in another way. All right. Okay. So we're saying the healthier options should also be more affordable, and that will encourage our parents and certainly our children to consume the healthier meals. Okay, I take the point. And let me go to my telephone very quickly where persons are feeding me with questions. We want to get as many. What can be done? No, we asked that already. What is the timeline for the implementation of the policy?
Kesia, I think Ms. Johnson is on from our policy department. She is the keeper of the schedule because I know we have more consultations to do and we might have to circle back with certain groups again. Ms. Johnson, don't know if you're still on.
Right. Vivian Johnson from the Policy Division, are you on?
But I'd like to, well, if she's not on, what I'd like to say, we're in October now. We've been at this for at least 2 months in terms of speaking with the major stakeholders. I know we have others, so October, November, I would say by January, February of next year, we should be in Parliament with this.
Okay.
Okay.
I could come in now, Minister. That's correct. We're near to the end of the consultation. And then what we are going to do is based on the feedback from the different consultations, we are just going to amend the policy accordingly. And then after that, we seek Parliament's approval for white paper. And then after that, that will be the policy itself, the approved policy. So give us early, by December, January, we should be there. Couldn't mute.
Okay, and here's one. Go ahead, Mrs. Johnson.
No, thank you, Casey. That's okay.
All right, thank you. Okay, and here is a consideration. Can the schools afford to provide these choices for students, especially for prepared meals?
So KCR, in many of our schools, maybe 95% of our schools, there is a cafeteria or a canteen that provides cooked meals. During the presentation, I was happy to see that we will be providing menus to our schools. We'll also be teaching or training the persons who work in the cook shops or the canteen at school on some of these things. I think you'll be amazed to know the ease with which some of these meals can be produced. It's just a matter of training of persons to help them understand how you do the different combinations or you do the presentation to make it look attractive. It's, you know, I think it's just going to take a little time for us to train, speak with, build the awareness among those in our canteens at schools. But in time, they will be able to create these meals as well.
Thank you. I wonder if Dilette Hopewell would chime in here. I know that many schools were part of the school feeding program where those schools, the staff that would be responsible for the preparation of meals, they were given menus and so on. And I believe the school feeding program went well. Certainly, the Parenting Commission has partnered with that unit to help parents to prepare healthy meals, because we do have a concern for that. Is Mrs. Hopewell on? Because it would be good to hear from her. Yes. Is there anything you'd like to add?
Yes, Ms. Clark, just to add that we have actually trained our cooks. We provide training for our cooks. In fact, quite recently during the pandemic, training was done for about 700 persons. And therefore, we have actually prepared as well recipe manuals for the schools. So in terms of the portion size, in terms of different variety of meals and so forth, that provision has been made. And I raised my hand as well when you asked the question about giving the students vegetables and how they would readily accept the same. In the sense that in 2015, between 2015 and 2016, a pilot was conducted in 5 schools in Manchester. And at the start, the students were not willing to eat the vegetables, but afterwards, they all wanted vegetables on their plates. Mm-hmm. So children are good imitators. They practice what they are taught. So as was said before, it's a gradual process, you know, and once you start, they will buy into it. I had a very interesting story for my sister some time ago when she left her kids with me and was overseas. And when she came back, they were all eating vegetables that they were never eaten before. And she was amazed. But I was the first to show them. I demonstrated to them. I modeled the whole thing to say, this is great, just taste it. And they all wanted it. So once we start giving more vegetables to students, more of everything, more water, they will readily adapt to that change. So we will continue the training with our cooks. We will continue the training with the principals, the heads of canteens or supervisors or concessionaires. We will continue the training and we will continue to provide the support and guidance that they need as they navigate this journey.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mrs. Hope Webb. Like I said, this is a big item for us at the Ministry of Education. Nutrition has been on our agenda for a long time. It's important. We understand why this is important to learning. And so we've been pushing healthy nutrition for a while, and we've actually been engaging parents. Especially through the commission, we have done so much work in this area and we continue. So I look forward to this policy that will give us an even stronger footing on which to stand as we try to encourage our parents to, prepare healthier meals and give your children healthier options. So we move on now, and how will schools be facilitated with storing vegetables? And will the policy be applicable to private schools? So Mrs. Hope Webb and then Minister. So Mrs. Hope Webb, how will schools be facilitated to store vegetables? Do you have any idea? And Minister, will the policy be applicable to private schools?
Well, let me
Go ahead.
Go ahead,
Who's
Minister.
that? Okay, and Vivian can help me out as well. This policy is applicable to public educational institutions. Of course, we'd love our independent schools to come on board as well. But, because obviously this is about all of our health. It's not just about the health of the children in the public educational institutions. So yes, we'd love to see our independent schools come on board as well.
True, Minister.
Go ahead, Vivian. Mrs. Johnson, go ahead.
I'm in support what Minister said, yes.
Okay. Thought I heard it. Great. And Mrs. Hope Webb, facilities for storage of vegetables?
Okay, as it is now, all schools have a refrigerator, and we have been having discussion with other means of support in terms of storing vegetables. So that is now taken into consideration as we seek to launch and to implement the National School Nutrition Policy. So all of those concerns are being addressed as we speak.
Right, and just before, thank you so much. And just before I hear from Giovanni Brady, Georgian Cohol is asking, how will we enforce the policy, which by the way, she believes is an excellent policy. How will we enforce this policy among the vendors? So how will we get the vendors on board? Minister, any ideas?
Right, so we'll be doing the same things with the vendors, doing the sensitization, talking with them. We know that the vendors sell what the manufacturers produce, right? And so I know together with Minister Tufton, we will be appealing to the manufacturers of these items to look at how best they can reformulate, reduce sugar content. And I know already on the market, if you go to your supermarket shelves already, many of the items, many of the drinks, the little drinks that the children would drink, they have begun to reduce the sugar content in them. We want them to reduce the fat content as well and other things. It's going to take a little while or some time, I should say, for all of this to sink in and be accepted by Jamaicans, but we are going to keep at it in terms of raising the awareness and appealing to our manufacturers to look at how best to reformulate the things that they're selling in the best interest of our children and us as adults as well. So that's where we're starting. We have to start somewhere, and so we're starting. I don't know yet that we would be moving to any draconian measures just yet. We want to increase awareness. We want to get acceptance. We want persons to understand that it's in their best interest to do this. We know the data, we see the statistics. We know a lot of people in Jamaica have high blood pressure and diabetes and all these things. We know it, but we have to help them in terms of behavior change. And this policy is a first step in that direction. To say both the Ministry of Education and Youth and the Ministry of Health and Wellness the repository of national data, national statistics. Both entities are saying we have to make some changes in our diets as adults and in what we feed to our children. This is a multi-year behavior change that we have started on, and we have to just sustain the campaign around this. Get out the information out there to all and sundry. I know we have not even gotten to 10% of Jamaicans yet, despite the many sessions that we've had. So there is still some way for us to go. We're seeing just, the early take-up of this. Especially in what children are drinking water. They're drinking water in school, at home. They're asking for water. So maybe 10 years ago, this might not have been the case, but the more information we have out there, the more we talk about it, the more we talk about the negative impact of not drinking water or of drinking high sugar beverages. I think the more it will seep in and you will begin to see behavior change.
Yes, thank you, Minister. Mr. Giovanni Brady from the Ministry of Health and Wellness, handing over to you. Are you on, Mr. Brady? All right, so in the interim, Nemisha McLean, who is on Zoom, she says, I love the policy. It sounds really great. Applying this healthy eating will become like eating a sweetie very soon. So that's a positive response from you. And really, this is a kind of support we want in the education sector. It makes our lives a lot easier when parents are on board and we can all agree on what's beneficial for our children. Okay, I invite you to open your microphones. So if you raise your hand, I'll see you so that we can hear from those of you who are on Zoom to hear your thoughts, for you to share any concern you have, if any. Well, I'm being redundant. Any concern, if any. That's to show you how much I want to hear your concerns. All right, but this is a point where we clear up any concerns you have. Okay. I'm not seeing the hands. Benisha Blackwood, could you unmute and you're free to contribute. Benisha Blackwood, your hand is up.
Good evening, everyone. You hearing me?
Yes, I'm hearing you. Go ahead, Benisha.
I'm totally on board with this initiative. I welcome it wholeheartedly. But one concern I have though is that I think I heard the minister was mentioning that for the public schools, but if it is that the private school want to come on board, it will be good. But based on what has happened before, where there are some policies that are mandatory as it relates to education, I would recommend though that the health policy, the healthy eating policy that is to be implemented should be made mandatory right across the board for both private and public schools for the benefit of our children and also our future.
Thank you. And I see Giovanni Brady from the Ministry of Health and Wellness on board. So I'm going to take one other person, Kadero Smart. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Could you open the microphone and go ahead? And Mr. Brady, if there's anyone on your side, you could go ahead and have those persons come on immediately after. Kadero Smart, you may unmute. Okay, all right. Mr. Brady, go ahead.
Hi, good night, everyone. Giovanni Brady here from the Ministry of Health and Wellness. So I've been monitoring some of our other platforms. So far, there's been one question. I'll pose that question to our ministers and our experts. So Mr. Dale A. Edwards is asking, the funding that is provided to schools may be insufficient to assist with this program. will there be an increase in the funding? That's the one query that I'm seeing from my end.
Okay, so again, what I'd say is this is the beginning of articulation of this policy, this nutrition policy in schools. As we move along, I am sure other things will become evident to us. We're at the beginning of this process. It begins with increasing awareness. It begins among different stakeholders, or parents, or students themselves, or teachers, persons, the entities that make the food items that we consume, the vendors at the school gate. As we move along, this will take different form and shape in terms of its implementation. You might begin to see more school gardens in school, more of that being used into the making of school lunches and so forth. We may form partnerships with international entities already. We're speaking with the World Food Organization and so on. So everything is not perfectly in place yet for all of this, but this is just a beginning. And what you mentioned in terms of the possible cost of the meal and whether or not government would subsidize and so on, those are all issues as we begin the rollout of this policy that I'm sure we will have to deal with. Again, these are early days, beginning with the awareness of all of this and to see how we move on to the next stage in terms of implementation of this policy.
Thank you, Minister. Is there another question on your side, Mr. Brady?
I know that's the only question on my side to this point.
Okay, thank you so much. And Stacy and Gavin is
still listening.
Minister, you wanted to say something?
Sorry, yes, I was just saying that I know Dr. Tufton
is on, right?
Still on, yeah. Well, but anyhow, I have a comment here that nutritious food doesn't mean expensive. It's what we prepare and how we
prepare what we
so,
have.
for example, if we look at the drink, right, the drinks, the high sugar drinks that are there, and you compare that to, say, water, which we are emphasizing is the better product or the best liquid that you can drink. It's not any more expensive than a high sugar drink. You know what I mean? It's just that when we think good nutrition, we always think higher price, higher cost, but it's not necessarily so.
For sure, and based on what Dr. Tufton and the team from the Ministry of Health are saying, is that in the long run, it's going to be way more expensive if we continue this way. So I'm certainly in agreement, Minister. There's some a mindset change around what we eat that has to take place. All right. Sasha Campbell, who is on Zoom, is saying the policy should be mandatory. NCDs affect both students of public and private schools. All right. Thanks for those considerations or that particular consideration. Let me see if there's anybody else online here. Dr. Tufton, if you're on, I'm sure there's something you may want to say. All right, and until Dr. Tufton comes on, I propose we provide a greenhouse at each school. This will procure fresh vegetables, provide jobs, and give students some agricultural experience. All right, so Minister did speak to the fact that, well, maybe not a greenhouse, but certainly school gardens and so on. So those are considerations.
Yes, absolutely. Sure. Way more of our schools.
Yes. And there is a comment about getting companies, the person listed the companies, getting other companies that make sugary drinks on board. How are we going to get those companies to be on board to reduce the sugar in the drinks?
All right, so again, we're doing the same things that we're doing here tonight in terms of engaging with the manufacturers. And I know the Ministry of Health and Wellness has been doing this. I want Jamaicans to just reflect and to look at what they're eating in 2022 and go back in time. Many of the things we're eating in 2022 did not exist. Probably in my mother's days, they didn't exist. They were not made. Somebody had the idea to make this particular product, and they determined that X amount of sugar is going to be in it, and whatever other, food coloring and all of that is going to be in it. So, let us not think that just because this is what we have today is what we're going to always have in the future. As Jamaicans, we can bring about change in the foods that we see in our supermarkets, on our store shelves, on the corner shop. We are the ones that have the purses, the pocketbooks, or by the bank accounts, or whatever you call it. We are the consumers, and we can and should demand change in the things that we are eating in our bodies for the sake of our health. And we can do that in a peaceful way. We can let our voices be heard by not buying some of these things. And pretty soon it will send the strongest message to the manufacturers.
Okay, ministers and everybody else on the platform, based on what I'm seeing here, if this is any indication as to the support for this policy, then we're on the right track, because so far I've not heard one dissenting voice. I'm hearing people saying that they're in support of the policy. They want to know what tools we have, what suggestions we have to help their children to acquire the taste for some foods that they might not have been introduced to before, but that are healthy for them. And so this is good. This is what we want to hear. We want to know that when we have these policies that we're contemplating, that parents are not only understanding, but when they're implemented, we're going to have your support. And the support is not limited to saying to your children when you go to school, eat what's provided, that's healthy, but you're supporting by ensuring that at home you're also making those healthy choices for your children and encouraging and supporting what we're doing at school at home. Maybe instead of giving so many of the sugary drinks and putting them in the lunch kits, you'll substitute some of those with water. And that's the kind of support we want. We want what you say to be followed by your actions. I want to go back to the chat because I'm not able to see any more hands. I want to cover.
Ms. Carr, there is a Shanika Moto.
Right, Shanika Moto. Hello, Shanika. You may unmute. Go ahead, please.
Good night, Miss. What about for the persons who can't afford it?
Persons who cannot afford.
Yeah.
Persons who cannot afford. All right. So, Minister, for those persons who might have struggles in terms of their own finances and their ability to consistently provide meals that in their view are nutritious, what have we to say to them? I know Minister addressed this before, but we can say it again so that everybody understands that providing nutritious meals doesn't always mean that it's going to be more expensive. Go ahead, Minister.
Absolutely, Casey, and we need to say that over and over again. It's a wrong notion that just because something is healthy, it means it's more expensive. That's not the case. We know that in Jamaica, we produce a lot of healthy stuff. Callaloo, cabbage, you name it, a range of things that are not overly expensive at all. So that's a notion that's out there that we have to dispel. But as I said earlier on, we're at the beginning of this process. I know that there may be a need for government to provide for those who are vulnerable in the system in terms of additional resources and so on. There will be a need for us to reach out to international partners to come on board and help us, not just with, in a technical way, but also with funding and so on. As we continue to implement this policy and to roll it out, I'm sure in our canteens, there will be a need for us to upgrade their refrigeration, their electrical works that they have, to provide more training and so forth. There are going to be 1,000 steps that we have to take, but this is the beginning of that process. First, you have to describe what it is. You have to get the buy-in, as we're doing here. You have to increase the awareness. You have to do the sensitization. We have to bring all the stakeholders on board for them to understand the single-mindedness of this mission, to get all of us as Jamaicans, not just the students in our schools, to understand the benefit of proper nutrition, and the positive impact that would have on our national budget as well, in terms of the cost that we all have to pay for when persons have to use our hospitals and other resources in the health sector. So just asking you to stay on board with us as we work to implement all the different stages of this plan. It won't be here 100% right away. But again, I said there are 1,000 steps that we all have to take in this process.
Thank you, Minister. And just to say that this is what the consultation is about. We are spurring you to think. We're beginning the behavior change process. We want you to think, to make intentional steps towards change. But it certainly doesn't end with a consultation. There's an education process, and that's where the National Parenting Support Commission comes in. We actually run classes. We have courses that we partner with the Ministry of Health and Wellness, and courses too that we have developed that treat with nutrition and physical activity. But there are also components of the course that allow you to see how you can use the very inexpensive, accessible items around that can actually be used to prepare nutritious meals for you and your children. And so may I invite you to call 560-9272, that's 876-560-9272, to find out about our sessions that we run every Tuesday through to Thursday of every week, and many times on weekends as well. Come and join us, because parenting is all of our business. It's everybody's business. Everything that you do impacts your children. And this is important. I believe it's important enough for you to get additional information so that you can actually continue to change your own habits in the home that will benefit you and your children. It is 8:30 p.m. The time went by very quickly, as it usually does when we have these kinds of events. I know that many persons have been, maybe you did not contribute, but you were there in the background thinking about everything, thinking about the implications, thinking about this policy, what it will mean for you, what it will mean for schools, what it will mean for your children, and how you'll be supporting the school and supporting the home. We can't say it enough. This homeschool relationship is very, very important. And we want to correct the behaviors through education. We don't want to be threatening parents to do the right thing. That's not how we operate, and it's not the best model for behavior change. We want to help you through education. So this has been a good session in my mind. And based on your comments, I think it was a good session for you too. You heard from our minister, the Honorable Favor Williams. You heard from the Minister of Health and Wellness, the Honorable Christopher Tufton. You heard from experts from the Ministry of Health and Wellness. You also heard from experts from the Ministry of Education and Youth. Certainly you heard from the President of the National Parent Teachers Association of Jamaica, and that is an important fixture in schools. You must join the PTA. This is where the commission comes many times, the National Parenting Support Commission. We come to those meetings and we train the parents who are a part of that important voluntary body. And I know people will argue many times, it's not the people we want to see who go to the PTA, but you can carry the message to the others. It's important that you carry the messages to the other persons in the community who do not make it to PTA meetings. On this side, we're the National Parenting Support Commission, and we are concerned with the matters related to education. So we can take the information to you in ways that you understand, so that we can help you to be more effective in your practice. Together, we will have the kind of education system that we want if we continue to partner. And I dare say, if we have this partnership going and it remains strong, we will have the kind of Jamaica we want to see. It's been my pleasure. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining and for contributing. Have a really good evening. And as usual, God bless you and God bless Jamaica. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.